Jackie Shaw iBroad presents
Zoomterview.
an Administrators Unite production.
We are here with Tracy Flanagan, one of my best friends and a longtime accounting professional. She has lots of experiences that I haven't had working in larger corporations and things like that. So she's here today to talk to us about a number of things. The first thing I would love to talk about is what it was like when we entered the accounting workforce in 1988. What are your memories of this experience?
I don't even remember how we got that job to begin with. Do you remember how we ended up there?
I don't
have
think
no recollection of that at
we
all.
must have found it in like the newspaper because
But how
we
did
didn't
we
I didn't
know
know
it?
anybody that worked there. Yeah.
No, neither did I, but it was because my mom worked in offices, so I would help her file and stuff. So I'd had some interaction with offices, but that's where we learned how to use a fax machine, how to use a 10-key calculator. So it was really kind of where everything was based and starting.
Mm-hmm.
Small company. There was only four of us in accounting, something like
Mm-hmm.
that.
Yeah.
When you're 18, it seems super exciting and you're changing the world. So
Was our workstation ergonomic? Do you remember our workstation at the first building before we moved?
it was easy to reach the ashtrays there because everybody smoked at their desks
In
there.
tiny little office spaces.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
they had us share a desk.
Ashtray in a drawer.
Uh-huh. And we literally shared a desk sitting next to each other.
Yes, we did. Yeah, one desk.
We were both very thin back then. Otherwise, we probably would not have both fit at one desk. It was pretty crazy. Yeah. And so we had the smoking. And then whenever we went out in the plant area, right? Because we would have to walk through there sometimes.
Yes.
Do you remember how we were treated?
Well, it was all kind of not really migrant workers, but they were kind of seasonal workers. Obviously, you only worked in a canning company. You're only growing crops in the summer, so they weren't people that were usually stayed in the area, and so it was uncomfortable to try to go to the cantina to get something to eat. Yeah.
I just remember all the cat calls we'd get.
Yeah.
Like we couldn't leave the office without being sexually harassed.
Yeah.
And it was totally acceptable that back then. And if we had complained about it, people would be like, "What's your problem? They think you're pretty. Doesn't that make you happy?" Right.
But when you're 18, you don't mind the cat calls that much. But when you look back on it now, yeah, it was very harassing and uncomfortable to do anything there. But we didn't leave the office all that often. So
No, we didn't. And luckily, neither one of us have ended up with any lung diseases from that experience.
no.
But you're right. That's where I learned how to. There was one thing I had to do where I had to go sit at this old computer workstation and do data entry. I can't remember what it was. Maybe it was like the tracking of the crops, but there was something on a old school system that hadn't even been upgraded yet. And then we learned all of the office equipment at that place. So very grateful for Stokely's for getting us started in this career.
Yeah, that was still floppy disk time and everything. So
Exactly. I'm not even sure if we had a computer at our desk. I think we were just doing math and sorting papers and organizing, right?
Yeah. I don't remember doing very much computer work there.
Yeah. So this was pre-computer work, all paper. Yeah. And we did survive without the artificial intelligences stepping in to try to help us.
Yes. Yes.
So that's where we started in 1988 in a smoky cigarette office with a woman with a really dark voice like that.
Karen.
Was that her name, Karen?
Yes, her name is Karen. remember her.
And then Big Boss, he barely even interacted with us, but I remember him telling us that he didn't want us smoking in the office because it was bad enough that she was smoking. And when we moved, nobody was going to get to smoke.
Yeah. But I don't think
So
we ever moved, did we?
we did, because we were sitting one day at work, and on the drive home, you said, I sat and stared at the same piece of paper all day
Yeah.
because you just didn't feel like working.
Sounds about right.
Yeah. So we had a bigger office then, like almost too big. Yeah. It was fascinating.
Yeah, I do remember that now. Yeah.
It was like mostly empty. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So what has it been like for you as a woman in the workforce, working in accounting and bookkeeping? Like, have you found that you are treated differently? And have most of your coworkers always been women? Have you ever had a, like, on the same level as you guy?
No, and that's what's strange is you very rarely saw any men in accounting back when we were starting out, but now it's obviously becoming more prevalent, acceptable, but you don't usually see them at the lower entry level type positions. Most men come in at a higher level in most companies. I can't remember working with any guys that were, when I was just starting out, that there was other guys in the office that were just starting out as well. So it's still not really as prevalent, which I'm not sure why, because I think if guys are going to get into that, they usually go to college for a business degree. It's not something they're going to do right out of high school, like we did. So I think they usually start then at higher positions simply because they've gone to school. But then they also come in with not as much experience either. And so then they're relying on all of the lower people basically to teach them how to do their job.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm not surprised you've experienced that. One of the CPAs I collaborate with says, if you're a woman, you're going to be an office manager or bookkeeper. If you're a man, you're going to be like an operations manager and controller or CFO.
Exactly. Yeah.
Like people don't want to give lower job titles to men, even now. Yeah. I see the same thing. I definitely have had a few clients. Like I have a lot of male clients that do their own data entry, right? And they do it very well. They are capable. It's all about the brain, not about the genitals. Like I say, a vagina is not an accounting degree, right? No. So it's not like you just, as a woman, you just know. And so there's men that have the right kind of tools and brain to do the work and are really good at it, right? But it's very far and few between where I meet somebody that's actually just their job is the bookkeeper, office manager.
Right.
And they're not like the owner in a micro business.
Right. And a lot of that is the new accounting programs and accounting software that's out there that makes it a little bit easier. So it is, a lot of companies, small companies can run on just one person doing everything because the accounting software now has gotten so advanced where it does a lot of the work for you now. So you don't need to have all of that kind of beginning experience, of 10-key calculator and knowing how to type and all of that. So
yeah,
it definitely kind of opened everything up so everybody can be on more equal footing, but experience still counts for a lot.
In the next episode, let's talk about software. I think that's a really good topic to talk about, how it's advanced. And I know for you, because you've worked for larger companies, you probably have used proprietary software or non-QuickBooks kinds of things. Yeah. So have you personally experienced sexism in the workforce? Like you try to talk to somebody about an issue and they ignore you, or you bring something up and you're ignored, and then a man brings up the exact same thing and he's not ignored? Or have you,
Oh
what,
yeah.
tell us some of the worst case stories so that people understand what we go through and kind of what to be prepared for.
Well, of course, it's always, well, we don't want to make you upset. We don't want to see you cry. Like every woman's going to burst into tears the minute there's any kind of conflict, So I've run into that a lot.
Yeah.
But it was at the larger company that I worked for. It was when COVID hit. And so a lot of people were going to be working remotely. And because I had experience with working remotely already, when the majority of them didn't, I said, we need to get a messaging program like Microsoft Teams or Skype or something so that we can all communicate in real time, where you're not having to constantly check your email or call each other back and forth. And they kind of laughed it off. And within 3 days, they're like, this isn't working. What are we going to do? And I said, we really need like a messaging thing. And like, yeah, we'll come up with something. And then one of the vice presidents suggests it. And within an hour, we've all got Teams installed on our computers, where I'd been suggesting that before we even started working remotely, because there were so many of us in that office. I thought it would be a lot easier than running around to everybody's desk to ask questions, where, because that's what I was used to doing from working remotely, to my coworker is quick, type her a message. This is what I'm working on. You could share documents, all of that. And the larger company had never really thought of doing that. And so I'd been suggesting it quite a bit and was ignored.
Yeah. Yep. That sounds about right. That's a thing too. Even here at the office, I mean, I have my assistant sitting, 10 feet from me, but we use join.me for screen share, and we'll use screen share just so I don't have to be over her shoulder.
Right.
Or I say her shoulder because the last few have been females. I did try one guy a while back. It didn't work out very well. Okay, so we were talking about situations where as a woman you were ignored or you experienced sexual harassment. Do you feel like because you were a woman that you didn't receive promotions? Did you see many people at your level being promoted to other positions when you were in those bigger companies?
No, not really.
So there wasn't
or work dumped on you, but it wasn't necessarily a promotion.
Yeah. So it wasn't like there was upward mobility out of the bookkeeping data entry world into other positions.
No, and the one company, the large company that I'd worked for, I'm like, I've got experience in this, and this, give me more work, let me expand it so I can make more money. And they said that without like a master's degree, I would never get a promotion there. But then they hired somebody that had her MBA. They hired her simply because she had an MBA. She had never worked in an office. She'd been cleaning pools for the last 15 years and didn't know how to work a 10-key calculator, didn't know how to operate an accounting program, but they hired her to be my boss simply because she had an MBA.
Yep.
She'd never actually done any accounting work at all, but they hired her into the accounting department to be my boss. And she only lasted about 2 weeks.
Yeah. Because darn it, if we're going to have a glass ceiling on us, anybody that's sitting above us better be crystal clean with all of their abilities and knowledge, man. Because it's like, it's almost like less tolerable when you're in a position like, when you know that they're not going to let you move up, and then they hire someone like that. That is terrible. That one of the one CPA that's always got great quotes. She also said, the more degrees you have, the more you're going to mess up the bookkeeping and shouldn't touch it.
Yeah.
And I think that that's very true too. I've cleaned up database disasters where they already had a CPA come in and clean up.
Mhm.
Well, they did a whole bunch of journal entries into like accounts receivable and accounts payable journal entries. And all that stuff has to get reversed out. Like you can't do, like you can't leave it sitting there. So the numbers might have looked pretty to the CPA for tax purposes, but as far as keeping a clean database and reconciling, there
Right.
was hundreds of thousands of dollars of duplicates. And the fix was they just threw a journal entry in somewhere. It was
And that's what
bad.
I'm running into right now at my current position is they basically showed the parts manager how to adjust his inventory. So basically, if he counts up how many oil filters he's supposed to have and it's off, he just goes in and adjusts it. I said, do you know how much money is being lost by letting him do that? I said, you need to take away his authorization in the system to be able to do that because he doesn't understand what he's doing. To him,
Mhm.
the numbers on the screen, they don't add up financially in his mind.
Right.
You know,
Yeah.
and that's just because I'm going in and looking at all of this old stuff that my boss right now, mom, hasn't had time to look at. And so she's giving me all these old reports for me to go through and reconcile. And I'm like, there's thousands, tens of thousands of dollars that are just missing because he's just been adjusting the inventory. And so I'm explaining to her now how important it is that people can't just change numbers in the system. They can't just make journal entries without knowing how it affects everything. That
Yeah.
be done by people that understand how it affects everything and make sure the correct accounts are hit and make sure everything balances, because that hasn't
Mhm.
been done now in quite a while, simply because she was the only person in accounting had never had time to do that. So
Yeah. Is that guy also doing all the inventory ordering?
yes.
So that goes against accounting controls, right? Because he can just buy a
Yes.
whole bunch of extra parts, write them off as missing,
Yeah.
and then take them home and sell them on eBay.
Yes, exactly.
Well, that's a good end to this video. We've always got to keep accounting controls in place. And yes, we don't want to let anybody go and play in the accounting world unless they know what they're doing. I see a lot of those inventory adjustments going on, and they're like you said, they're adjusting the quantity and they have no idea where the adjustment of the money is going, if it's going to the right place. And in
Yes.
QuickBooks, in QuickBooks, at least the desktop, you can pick the account you want to adjust against.
Right.
And so they could be picking anything, right?
He's just everything to shop supplies.
Yep. Yep.
He's putting everything to his shop supplies.
Yep. Wow. Well, thank you for that. That was a very good kernel of knowledge for us. And we don't always have the power to do this, but it's good you raised the issue because, like you said, it's tens of thousands of dollars and there's no control.
No.
There's no
No.
Nobody's watching.
No, and a lot of it is just the guys they're fixing a boat, and so they go to grab a part. Pete's not at his desk, so it never gets put into the system that they took this prop to go put on this boat.
Yeah.
And they don't.
So they should at least have a checkout, like like a part customer name,
Exactly.
so that he can update the books later. Yeah.
So I've
goodness.
been writing spreadsheets like a maniac the last couple weeks, so I can try to get everybody at least working on the same spreadsheet, so that there's at least a way to track it that's easy for everybody to use and that everybody can access.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much, Tracy. We'll be back to talk to Tracy Flanagan again about that software piece next. Let's focus on softwares.
This has been a Get Organized Entertainment production. If you'd like to see more videos, go to administratorsunite.com.